So hi there everyone. I welcome you back. So today we are going to see how we can control our inputs through a touch screen or mobile device input. So as you can see here, I have a sample made. So on the right part of the screen you can control your look, as you can see, and on the left part you can control your movement part, as you can see here. And so we are going to see how we are going to implement these things. So let's not waste much time and let's get started. So first of all, before getting to the scripting part, we need to make a empty game object in our tab so that we can manage our script. We will name it a game object. Right click, create. Empty game object will be created. You can just name it game manager or whatever you want. So inside that, I have made an empty game object which you can do by clicking on game object, right click, create empty. So I named it touch data, as you can see here, and you can just drag and drop your script which you can create here. Right click, create C# script, name it whatever you want, and just drag that script to the touch data part here, and then open the script. First of all, we need to make some variables, as you can see here. So first variable will be float data type, which I have named it as a right finger ID and left finger ID, and also a screen width float, which is going to store our screen width, and a look input vector 2 data type. I have named it look input, and data type is vector 2 and it's public. So these three things are required for your right part, which is the mouse look or touch look part, and also a sensitivity float variable here, as you can see. So in fact you require 1 2 3 4 5 6 data types here, 6 variables here, which is right finger id, left finger id, screen width, look input, and sensitivity. These two are for the next part, which is the movement part or the left part. So for in start, we are going to initialize left finger id and right finger id with -1, and screen width to screen dot width, and we are initializing it with -1 because uh, it's going to tell us whether the screen has been touched or not. If it's -1, the screen is not been touched or in a constant input, and if other than -1, it's getting touched and it's giving input. So initially there is no input, which I have denoted by giving it a -1 value, and the screen width variable is going to store the screen width of the particular device or mobile tablet, whatever device you are playing in, and we are going to get its width by using the screen dot width line of code. And then we are going to create a function, and which is a void return type, because we are not going to return anything from this function, and I have named it get touch, and you can name whatever you want. So inside that we have a for loop, which is going to loop through all the number of touches we have given to the screen. For example, we are doing a multi touch of 5 fingers, so whichever finger has touched the screen first will get the first index, then second one will get second, third finger will get third. So we are just going to loop through all the fingers and test for its touch type, whether it has moved, ended, or cancels, and get the input from that. So inside the loop we are going to create a touch data type variable. I have named it t, and I am going to get its touch data using input.getTouch and giving its index. So we are going to loop through all the number of touches, and each touch will have a touch which will store the data of that particular touch. And after that we are going to touch for its face, which is basically we are just checking for whether it has begun, it has been cancelled, whether our touch is moving or not. That all things we are checking. We are using touch.face, and we are using a switch case statement here. As you can see, we have declared it with using switch, and inside that we are giving its variable to check or data to check, which is t.face. We are checking for its face. So inside the first case we have touch face dot began, which is checking for whether our touch has just began. If our touch has began, then we are going to check whether it is on the right part of the screen, which we can do by using t.position of x is greater than half the screen width, which is the right part of the screen. And we are also going to check any other finger hasn't touched the right screen before, because whichever finger touches the screen first, that finger is going to move the screen or the camera. So that's why we are also checking where no fingers on the right side has been touched before. So if all these conditions met, we are going to initialize the right finger ID with that particular ID, which means our right finger ID's value has changed from -1 to that particular finger ID or that touch we have touched on the right part by giving its particular ID of that touch. And that will disable any other finger to control the look, and that finger particular with that ID will be able to only move the camera. So after that we do a break for that case. Then after that we are checking whether it has cancelled or ended. That particular touch has been lifted up or input has been cancelled. For that we are going to check using this touch.face.cancelled or touch.face.ended. So if it has ended, we are going to check that particular touch we are iterating through, is that particular index that same as that right finger which is controlling the camera. As you can see here, t.finger id equal to right finger id. If that's the case, then we are going to initialize it with -1 because we have removed that camera control finger id, and we have initialized it with -1. Then again break. Then after that we have a case touch face dot moved, which is going to check whether our finger is moving or not. So inside that we are checking if the finger ID we are touching, is same as that finger ID which is controlling the camera. So if right finger ID equal to t dot finger ID, we are going to initialize the look input vector2, which we declared here. As you can see, public vector2 look input here, and we are going to initialize it with t dot delta position, which is going to give us the position of our finger on the screen, and we are multiplying with time dot delta time and sensitivity variable which we created. So that's going to give us the position of our finger and to what position it has moved. And then again break. Then our last case will be whether it is stationary or not. If our finger is not moving, it shouldn't control the camera. So at that time we are going to give the look input as 0, because if it's stationary, if camera is moving, that's not the right way. So if our finger is stationary, the input will become 0, and that's all. Then we do break, and we are then after that this method or function is done, void get touch, and then we are calling it every time in update, that this get touch function which we created. So every time, every frame it will be called, and that's for the screen touch base script. And now to implement the values from this screen touch to our main camera, we need to make a variable of screen touch in our control script. As you can see here, I did here public screen touch, which I created in the mouse look script, and then we are going to check if touch.right finger id is not equal to -1. It's going to tell us if we are touching the right part of the screen or not. If we are touching, then we are going to call the look function, which is here, which is same as the mouse look, just the variables for input has been changed. Instead of using input.getAxis.mouseX, we will use touch.lookinput.x, which will give us the x vector of our touch, and same for the y vector for y. And this touch is the variable which we created from the class screen touch. Okay, and the look script will be same which I did in earlier videos, or you can just take a screenshot and copy this if you want. And this will control our look. This part, this will give our x input, this will give our y input, and this is going to check whether we are touching or not. And that's all for the mouse look script for using the touch function. So next up, we are going to see how we can move our character using the left part of the screen. So next part we will see how we can move our player character using the left part of the screen. It will be just same as the right part of the screen, just we are creating two variables here. Vector2, which is move touch start position, which is going to store the start position of our touch, and input, which is going to store the vector or the direction which we are going to So after that, we have already initialized it with left finger id equal to -1 in the first part, and then in the get touch function, just we need to add few things. We just need this part here. If our touch phase has began, and as same as that as we did in the look part, we are going to check if our position is less than the half of the screen width, which is the left part of our screen, and we have not touched the screen before, which is checked by left finger id equal to -1. If the conditions are met, then we are going to initialize the left finger id with t dot finger id as we did in our look part, and we are also going to initialize our start position of our touch to our move touch start position vector to variable which we created, and initializing it with the value t dot position. This will store the position of our beginning position of our touch, and then break. So in second case, when we are cancelling our touch or ending our touch, we just need to add else if the finger id equal to left finger id, which is the finger that is controlling the movement, or the first touch finger which is controlling our movement, and if it's that finger, that particular finger, then we are going to initialize left finger id with -1, which is going to remove it from the left part of the screen, which is controlling part, and we are going to initialize the move touch start position, and the move input vector also with vector 2.0, which is its input becomes 0. So next comes the moved part. We just need to add else if the left finger id is equal to t dot finger id, which we discussed already. We are just checking that if that particular iteration finger touch data is same as that which is controlling the movement part. If it's that finger, then we are going to give it a movement. We are initializing the movement input vector which we already created with t dot position minus move touch start position. This is actually a vector which will give us the direction in which we are moving. See, if we move on the right part of the screen from touch, it will just store the final position of our touch minus the initial position of our touch, which will give us the vector in which we have moved our finger, and we can input and we can use its data to move our character. So this is the main input variable which will store our data of our touch for our movement part. And then in the last case, if it's stationary, there is no need to change its move input to 0, because if we have moved our finger and made our stationary, we just want our player to keep on moving rather than stopping. So that's all for the just movement part of our script using touch. You just need to add these two lines of code. This line of code, if you have added in the first parts, then there is no need. Otherwise, you should add this part and this part in began part, and in ended part this part, and in moved part just this part. That's all just you need to add for movement part. And to implement it, we just need to our movement script, or whichever movement script you have made, we just need to initialize and again a variable public screen touch, which is a variable made from our screen touch class which we have just learned here, and name it touch. And then so you for y input, just touch.moveinput.x and touch.moveinput.y for y input, instead of using horizontal and vertical input class or keyboard settings. That's all, and you will now be able to move your player character left and right. That's all for the look part and the movement part, and this will help you to make the basic control for your touch mobile devices. And this button parts, as you can see here, aim or weapon change, whatever you want to do, this part we will do a separate video, because already the video has been pretty long. So next time the video will be on the buttons and how we can implement this, and assign them whatever method we want. Suppose for fire, here is for jump and reload. You can assign whatever thing you want to do with the buttons, and next video will be on that. And if you just want to know them, you can just google them in YouTube also. There are many videos on buttons and very few proper tutorial on the touch inputs. So that's why I just did the look part and the movement part this time. So next video will be on buttons. And if there are any other thing you just want to want me to make a video on, just comment it down below and I will try to make a video on that. And I hope this is very helpful for you and has helped you save a lot of time rather than searching here and there on the internet. And that's all for today. And have a great day. See you again. Bye.